Okay, we're up to Daf Nun Dalid. We're in the sugya of the different parts of the Kesuba. So again, we've been dealing with the Tanaya of the Kesuba. The Mishnah had mentioned 3 Tanoim, the Tanaya of Banim Dichrin, Mizainis for the girls, and Mizainis for the Almana. The girls get Mizainis up until Bagris, or up until they get married, then Suin. Erisin was machlokes between Rav and Levi. The Almana, as long as she doesn't collect a Kesuba, she would go ahead and be supported from the estate. We saw that the men of Yerushalayim and men of Golul, that was the halacha. But in Anshe Yehuda, they would force the issue. They would go ahead and buy her out. Literally, they would back a collected suba in order that she shouldn't go ahead and be leeching from the estate. So we're up to Nun Dalid Amid Aleph. We're up to right by the first wide, one line before the first wide line. So it said, At the Heyasri V'Beisi, the lashon of the Mishnah that the Almana, you'll sit in my house. At Yasri V'Beisi, you'll go ahead, right, and you'll sit in my house. Kol Yemei Umitzanei Minachasai, Kol Yemei Megar Munasayich, as long as the extent of your Almana. Right. Now, it has to be that they're staying there, fellas, because she is giving cover to her husband. In other words, she's his almana. As soon as she stops being his almana, which we'll see certain actions a woman can do that will show that she's not thinking about her husband anymore, at that point in time, she would collect her ksuba and lose the mezainis. As long as she's his almana, then she's in the house. Until then, not. So it says bebesi, Tana Reb Yosef, bebesi, loy bebikasi. Let's say the guy, they don't have a house, they only have a sukkah. Bikasi is a type of hut for birds. So if they only have a hut for birds, then they would not be required to live with them. But they would get mezainis. In other words, good, they wouldn't have. There's two features: the feature of living, living in lodging there and eating. So lodging is only when you have a house, but mezainis is irrelevant whether you have a house or not. You would go ahead and you would be provided. That's the opinion of Yosef. Ma'bar Vashi Amar Afil mezami nami leslay. Right. Even if you don't have a house, you don't have mezainis. She doesn't get anything. But let's look at Mar Vashi. The look is not like Mar Vashi. In fact, even if you can't have a house, you would get mezainis. Amrav Nach.
The only one she's younger and has a father's house to go back to.
This is not a father's house. It's a husband's house. She's living in her husband's house.
Right, but they could send her back to her father.
Irrelevant. Zero. No, she collects a ksuba. That's it. Amrav Nachman Mishmul Tavuli Nase. If someone goes ahead and asks her to marry him, in his spice and she agrees, Ein la mezainis. She doesn't have mezainis. Why? Why is that? Because she's no longer almanasach. She's no longer his almana. By accepting, showing she acquiesces to what, even for any erison, anything official, the fact that she is going out and she acquiesced to this person, ein la mezainis. Mashma haloinis spaisa yesh la mezainis. Mashma if she didn't accept, it would be mezainis. In other words, once she's going out, guys, so why is she not accepting? Why is she not accepting? Because she doesn't want this guy. But mashma, if it would be another guy that she would want, then, but where's the cover for the husband? In other words, already that's a sign, the fact that she is going out, right? So therefore, she's no longer the almana. So why does it depend upon whether she accepts it? The fact that she's willing to go out would be enough of a reason to go ahead and say she's not his almana. Remember, the ksuba is is a piece of Torah. We're daiking the words of the ksuba like Torah. Hanging the Yaakov. He explained it to me the following. If she says, I'm not marrying this guy, you know why? Because of my husband. I'm not marrying this guy because of my husband. In other words, I'm not ready for marriage, then yesh la mezainis. But in fact, the reason I'm not accepting this is because this guy is not appropriate for me, then ein la mezainis, right? That would make a lot of sense, correct? So in other words, in the first case, she's showing cover to her husband, and the latter case clearly has nothing to do with the husband. It has to do with her own desire that this guy's not the right guy. Yankel, you good?
So the attachment to it's contingent on the attachment to her husband. But the fact that she's not gonna have mezainis because she doesn't have a new husband, that we don't care about. I mean,
Yeah.
if she started dating someone
So
and she doesn't have mezainis yet,
she'll have mizonis. She'll take the ksuba.
then she'll cash in on it.
Exactly. Go to work. Go to work. I mean, good. When he was a guy, when I think you were both bought about it's like food stamps. When no, I'm serious. When he was alive, why was she getting mizonis? Not because of the Tanai Ksuba, because she worked. Again, she got mizonis because she worked. In lieu of the Maisa Yodeha, she got mizonis. So go to work. It's not, it's not like What? There's two dinim. When the husband's alive, she's getting mizonis. Not nothing to do with the ksuba. The Tanai Ksuba is al Messiah in the state of almonis. If one dies, then you're getting me cursed the ksuba. Beforehand, it's Maisa Yodeha. What? The ksuba says that no.
Well, he's married.
Nothing to do with the ksuba. Again, we had the Gemara before the Gemara. The reason why she gets provided from the husband mezainis is because she's working and giving that money to him. So
What does that mean she's working? Is she keeping a house for him?
no, she's going to work. She might see a daha. Then he doesn't have to. Then he doesn't have to feed her.
Isn't that something that the husband has to do for life?
Right.
He has to support her?
Again, it's the Rabbanon or the Raisa. Again, there's machloikis whether nachaf ma'asiyadeha. There was an opinion share susvain. We had a machloikis what share was. Was it curative basa? Was it again? It would depend. Light that sad that is the Raisa. We'd have to give. Light that sad that it's tit for tat is because she's giving her money. She's paying away. So, but being provided from the ksuba is a different thing. You understand? That's when she's a widow. Then she's getting from the ksuba. That's the whole different ballgame. And as soon as that relationship, as soon as she doesn't fulfill the ksuba, all hands off. It's finished, and she doesn't get mezainis anymore. So she is getting mezainis. Kol yemei megar almonasayich. You live in my house, you get mezainis all the days that you're my almana. As soon as you stop being my almana, you're out. Yeah, okay, so that was explained. So he explained in the name of Shmuel. Rav Anan explained it in the name of Shmuel that if she said I can't get married because of my husband, then she gets mezainis. If she says I'm not getting married because this guy is not appropriate for me, then what? Then in fact, then she's not the almana anymore. Okay, now listen to this. Amar Rav Chisda Zinsa. If she's mizana, she's an almana, she's mizana, ein la mezainis. Why? Obviously, she's mizana. Maybe that's the pagam in a relationship with her with her dead husband. Amrav Yosef kichla upirkasa. If she puts on makeup, now she's already wants to be attractive. Ein la mezainis. So Rav Chisda says two things. One, the act of znus will go ahead and sever that almana sayich, sever that t'nai the ksuba. Or putting on makeup, showing that she wants to attract the man, would also go ahead and sever that almanosayich. Manda amad zinsa kol sheken kichlu pirkasa. The one who says if she's mizana, certainly she puts on makeup. Manda amad kichlu pirkasa. However, the one who says she puts on makeup, avol zinsa isla. If she's mizana, she would have mizanis. My timer yetzer ansa. She had a yetzer hara. Again, we had the Gemara the other day, right? The famous. We went through that Rav Tzaddik, unbelievable, right? That Rav Tzaddik is not to be passed around that easily. But we saw the other day that it's possible that a person can be an honest. So this is amazing. You would think it's kind of counterintuitive, right? You would think if she's putting on makeup and kolshken, if she's mizana, she loses. It's the opposite. Mizana is a reason that she doesn't lose mizainis. She had a taiva, and she indulged in the taiva. Mashenkein, if she's putting on makeup, clearly she wants to attract another man. That's severing the almanosayich. So that's the chalukei deis in the Gemara. Less hilchas hakahani shmaitza. The halacha is not like the sugya at all. Ella ki hodam Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. HaToivas ksubasa, the bezdin. If a woman is toiveya ksuba in bezdin, the woman says, "I want my ksuba." She's claiming the ksuba, then ein la mezainis. Right? That if she's tavei ksuba, she doesn't. In other words, if she's mizana, she gets mezainis. If she puts on makeup, she gets mezainis. If a guy goes ahead and asks her to marry, she gets mezainis. Now, again, but taveya not. Taveya not. I spoke too fast. If you look at Taisus, the third Taisus down, less hilchas kachol ani shmaitza, akula koi. It's going back on makeup and snus. Bar mitzvah linase. Aside from if someone is taveya to get married, that who adifo, because that's stronger. The ikachol hani dafka of the koi nami atfuel linase and kain kasha the shmuel. You can have a question on Shmuel or Anan Damel El. The Shmuel knows you can have a stira. Over here you said Allah is not like, and Shmuel said before that you're taveya, and Shmuel explained that if the difference between the husband was if the guy was appropriate for her or not appropriate. Shmuel made that chilik, and now he says the whole thing is Allah is not like that. So Shmuel will be a stira to Shmuel. So it has to be that Shmuel is stating that only regarding znus and regarding putting on makeup, but regarding being taveya, if the person is making a claim, then the halacha is that then you would lose you would lose mizainis in that situation if you don't state outright that the reason why you're not getting married is because of your loyalty to your dead husband. You're saying just if you tavei ksuba, she loses it. Machros ksuvas, if she sells a ksuba, umashkan ksuba, or she goes ahead and she uses as a collateral to secure a loan. She says, I'm giving you my ksuba to get a loan. Asa ksubasa apaitiki. Or she makes the ksuba, the land of the ksuba, the first dibs, the first mortgage will be on the land that the ksuba is meshubah to. Apaitiki stands for apoi tehei koi. Over here, there is where your first mortgage is. You're not going to any other land, you're going to this particular land. La'acher ein la mezainis. So you see, it's lav dafka tavei ksuba. She can go, in order to lose mezainis, she can go ahead and lose mezainis the other way by going ahead and making her ksuba mashkin or making her a paitiki. And for the Gemara, hani and avol tavas loy. And for the Gemara, hani bein bebezdin, bein shloi bebezdin. All the things we just mentioned has nothing to do with bezdin, right? In other words, if she goes ahead and all of a sudden there's a loan and she says, how'd you get the money? And she says, well, I use my ksuba, that I feel shloi bebezdin, she would lose the mezainis. Toivas bebezdin in shloi bebezdin loy. By tavas, but then if she's claiming a ksuba, that's dafka in bezdin. But if it's not in bezdin, then not. So again, the rule of thumb to remember, I spoke this out the other day when I said, if I remember, Baruch Hashem, I remembered it, that when you're tavei ksuba, that's when you're losing mezainis. You never get both. You tavei ksuba. So again, it's kedai to reiterate. Every ksuba, there's different halakim to ksuba. There's what the father gives, and that's called in a dunya. That's called a dowry, what she brings in. There is the ikar ksuba, which is 100, 200. And there's the Tosefes ksuba, which the husband adds onto that. That's the Tosefes ksuba. And then there's the Tanai ksuba, which is written in the ksuba for various reasons, right? We have a three Tanoim we're discussing is the ksubas banim dichrin, the mezainis of the girl, and the mezainis of the almana. And right now we're discussing the mezainis of the almana. Okay, we said that when she gets the mezainis from the estate, the almana, as long as she's not tavei ksuba, and we said there's different minhagim, that in Yerushalayim the minig was as long as she didn't claim the ksuba, she'd be supported from the estate. However, in Yehuda, and Golul was like Yerushalayim, but in the south in Yehuda they would push the envelope. They would go ahead and say, listen, here's your ksuba, you're on your own. Good. So we're going to discuss that right now. Kachoy Anshe Yerushalayim. So Anshe Yerushalayim and Golul, they did the same thing. Mashen came what? Mashen came the Yehuda was different. Idmar. Rav says, Halacha Kanshe Yehuda. The halacha is in conjunction with the men of Yehuda. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Halacha Kanshe Golul. The halacha is like Anshe Golul. So Rav says that they can force the issue by making a collective ksuba. Shmuel says the halacha is like the Anshe Golul, that they can't force the issue. Bavel is a town in Bavel, the Chol Parva Daha, right? And all of its suburbs. Noyik Kirav, the Noyik like Rav, that you can force the issue. Nardoi, the Chol Parva Daha. So guys, Bavel is a place in Bavel called Bavel, because Nardoi is in Bavel, fellas. Sura, Nardo, these are all towns in Bavel. Pumpadisa, these are towns in Bavel. So it'd be an oxymoron to say Halacha kan shegalo. Bavel, the chol parvada, no yikarav. Now, one second. Now, is also Bavel. So obviously you see Bavel is what? Is a place in Bavel. Like New York, New York. Guys, like New York. New York City is in New York State. So in Bavel, there was a Bavel. In blog material. In Bavel, there was a Bavel. The Chol Parvadasa. Noyik Shmuel. And the rest of Nardai and its suburbs were Noyik like Shmuel. Hahi Bas Mechuza. Now, Mechuza is a place, there's Noyik like Rav. So there was this girl from Mechuza, I mean, the Siva Nardai, but she married an Nardai. So she was a Rav person, but she married a Shmuel person because she married a person from Nardai. Asla Kamei de Rav Nachman. Again, her husband died, and the kids wanted to throw her off this estate. Shama Lakoila de Bas Mechuza. Rav Nachman heard her accent that she was a Bas Mechuza, meaning she was from the area of that passes like Rav. Amalahu Bavel v'chol parvadaha noye karav, and therefore they have the right to go ahead and ask you to leave. They take your ksuba and leave. So Amrulay, they said to him, she married a person from Nadai. Amalu, he said to them, Nadai v'chol parvadaha noye kishmuel, and they can't force the issue. She could stay as long as she wants, as long as she doesn't claim a ksuba. But Nadai, to what area is considered in Bavel? Guys, since it's all Bavel, at which point do we go and say that's the halachas like Shmuel? Because there's parts in Rav, parts of Shmuel in Bavel. So on that we say ad heicha desage kabed nardoi. They would use the measurement, kav is a measurement, and they had different measurements, I guess, in nardoi in places. So wherever they use the measurement of nardoi, that was what the halacha would extend, that they can't force the issue, and she could stay there as long as she doesn't claim haksuba. Okay, this is again one very nice theme of understanding this whole concept of Messiahness and the Tanoi. It's very, very nice, Gemara. Itmar, Amana, Rav Amma. Now, when she collects a ksuba, what items go into estimating the ksuba, guys? You have 200, right? Or 100, whatever it is. What items go into it? Does clothing go into it? Do the clothing that she wears go into it? So Almana, Rav Amma, Shamin Masha'Allah, says Rav, it belongs to him. In other words, he could pay her off. Ushmuel Amar ain't Shamin Masha'Allah. You don't evaluate what's on her. It belongs to her. So according to Rav, she's wearing a nice dress. How much is that? Deduction. You're going to deduct because it belongs to him. According to Shmuel, what?
So who's worth more? She writes in the check.
Well, usually clothing is not worth more. Ksuba is considerable sum of money. Ksuba Bismana says about $10,000. I don't know. I don't know if it says clothing. I don't know about jewelry. It says clothing. I don't know if the jewelry is. It's probably huz. The jewelry is huz. Right. Amrav Chia Baravim, the chilufa bilocket. A worker who you provide a uniform for, you provide clothing for, is the opposite. No, as Rab would say, it belongs to the owner, and Shmuel would says it belongs to the opposite. It belongs to him, and Shmuel says it belongs to the owner. Rav Kahana Masni v'chein bilocket. The same machlokas is by locket. The Rab would hold say an owner by ksuba and say a worker that works for you. Whatever they have belongs to you, and they have to pay for it. Umanach besimana, and he left a simon like Rav. Rav kind of gives a simon like Rav. Yasma, in this case, a worker. Barmalas and almana shalach upaik. Take off your clothing and leave because the clothing belongs to me. Amrav Nachman. Afagav that nam masnisan kavasi de Shmuel. Even though we learned in the Mishnah the like Shmuel mashma that the garment belongs to her. Hilchas kavasi de Rav, the halacha belongs to Rav. The halacha is like Rav, that in fact that it belongs to him, and you evaluate it in the ksuba, you'll make a deduction. Now, where is the Mishnah that's like Shmuel? It's a Mishnah in Erchen. Erchen discusses the parsha of Erchen, where the person says Erki Alai, and we discussed, depending on the person's age, you're going to go ahead and bring a certain amount. So the Mishnah says, Echad Magdish Nechassav, this is what we need. A person is Magdish's property. What's included in that act of sanctification? The Echad HaMarich Esatzmai, or a person who goes ahead and says his Erech belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. Ein loy, he has nothing. Loy biksus ishtai. In other words, the garments of his wife do not belong to him. So this is the right to Shmuel, correct? In other words, his act of kodesh is not chal on the clothing of his wife because it's not his. That's the right to Shmuel. Guys, that's the right there. That's the right. I'll continue the mission in a second, but Uriah is right there already. Your magdish nechasav, including in that kiddush, is not your wife's clothing. You know why? It's not in your possession to go ahead and be makdish, which is Shmuel. It's not in your possession to make a deduction on your ksuba. Right. So now, nor is the kid's clothing, or even the dye that it's seveya, not new shoes, shalakach lishman for them. So why do we see that we have a Mishnah in Erchin that's a raya to Shmuel, that in his act of kiddush, right, we're not including the wife's clothing. Now that you brought a raya to Shmuel, why is the Rav? Why is the halacha like Rav that the clothing belongs to him, right? And you can deduct it from the ksuba. So Malay, this is a very funny lashon, guys. L'chayra, you thought it's Yeshiva Shareit, huh? It's Mefurish Gemara. L'chayra kishmuel ririta. Right. Look, it would appear kishmuel rihita, meaning if you go through the sugya rahit, if you run through the sugya, it would appear like Shmuel. However, kimayanis ba, but when you look into it and think into it, hilchasakavase derav. Guys, what's the difference? A guy is magdish his wife. A guy is magdish his nechasim. His wife's is not included. Versus a guy is getting divorced and he's paying off his wife. When she's with him, of course he's going to give the clothing to her. But when she's leaving him, he's going to take that and say, what? As long as you were with me and my wife, the clothing was yours. Now that you're leaving, it's mine. I pay for it, it's mine. That's the difference. So that's when you look into it, there's a difference between a wife leaving and a wife staying. The Mishnah in Erchin, where he's magdish's property and the wife's clothing is not kodesh because his wife is staying with him, so it remains by her. But over here by the ksuba, which is collecting and leaving, then it's his. Says no, my timer, ki akni la, when he was makne to her the clothing, a daita lemekim kamei. It was with the das to stay in front of him, to be with him. A daita l'meshakal lemefik. But on the das to go ahead, take it and go out, like akni la. So when the wife leaves, the clothing was never hers. In other words, the kinyan that you made, guys, was with like a tanai. I gave you the clothing till when you live with me. I didn't give you the clothing to leave me. Once you're leaving already, then we make the deduction. It's like Rav, it belongs to me. That's the difference between the two. Fascinating one. Fascinating one. Weiter. Kolsa debate. Now some more Lamaisa of the situations. Again, what does Rav say, guys? Rav says that the clothing belongs to him, and you deduct it from the ksuba. Kalsa de Beibar al Yashiv, the daughter-in-law of the house of al Yashiv, Havi Kotov Kesuvos Yasme. Her husband died. She's claiming now from the assignment. She's claiming her ksuba. Havi Komemati Lahula Beidina, and they're going to Bezdin. So Amri, they told this woman, Zilalon Milsa, it's a zeal, it's a degradation for us. That the tezel haki, that you should go looking like this. Go to court, you got to look a certain way. Look at these guys are very smart guys. Oslo Levishtayu Vechsenu Lakula Mana. She went, you know what did she do? She dressed herself up with all the clothing. She looked beautiful, right? Asla Kamei de Ravina, who was in Bezdin, Amalahu Hilchasakavasi de Rav, the Oma Almana Shamin Masha Lecha. In other words, what did these guys do? They wanted to go ahead and they fooled her. She's wearing all this clothing, so Bezdin's going to do what? They're going to make all these deductions from the ksuba because the luck is like Rav. So this is the bill. Ahuda Amalei Nedunya Lebras. Now, if someone says he's a shrivmira, he's dying. He's on his deathbed. And he says that this Nedunya, he sets an amount of a tachshit for his daughter and clothing, and says this should be her dowry. And Zol Nedunya, the Nedunya went down in price. Some Ravidi Baravin, Purnoli Asme, the profit is to the assignment. They only have to give it that tachshit, and only give the tachshit and the clothing as it is right now, right? And we don't say she has to give the price it was when he made it sava. Okay, right now, there was the they make the money. They make the money. Hahu the amalahu amid beis. Arba meyazuzay min chamra libra. 400 meyazuz from wine is to my daughter libras. Iyaka chamra if the it goes up. Rabbi Yosef Rafkel Yasmin. The Simon get the profit. You know, Rashi points out. Mashma osa yayin yem mishubi lekach. Aval yayin atzmoi loy omar litin la kidam of shal yom atzava. What he wanted to do, he wanted to give it 400 zuz. And he wanted to ensure that you get the 400 zuz. So he said that this wine will guarantee it. But not that he was giving her the wine. If he gave her the wine, of course the profit would be to her. But he wasn't giving her the wine, he was just giving the wine to secure the 400. Kravid Rabbi Yosef, the relatives of Rabbi Yosef, Habilu Isis Abba, they had a widow, the Habi come Mifsada Mizayne. She was living from the States, says Rashi, and Marbala, she ate a lot. she fressed. She was not cheap to keep. She was not cheap to keep, and they wanted to get out of this situation. Right? Anyway, so us the Kamei of Yochanan Amalahu Izilu Amule, go and say La'avuchan the Niyachid La'ara Limizayna. Go say that your father's Miyachid Ara for her Mizaynis. In other words, you make, and therefore everything would have to come from that, right? From that, nothing else. Okay. Us Kamei of Shlakish Amalei. Amalu told them, Kol Shekain Sheribula Mizaynis Adrabba. You know what they did? He just increased it. In other words, in addition to whatever you're getting, you're going to get from this land as well. So Amalei told Reish Lakish for Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan tells this. Amalu Zil Havula, go give it to her. The law, and if you don't, Mafkina Luchu Rabbi Yochanan, I'm going to take Rabbi Yochanan out of your ear. This is saying that I'm not listening. Now this is a fascinating Gemara because also coming to Rabbi Yochanan, you figure Rabbi Yochanan would stand up for himself? No. Amalui said, Ma Esa, what can I do? Shekinegdi Cholakalai, someone who's equal to me, Shekinegdi. Reish Lakish is equal to me, is arguing on me. We only pass like Reish Lakish like 3 times in Shas. We pass like Reish Lakish. But this is, and so Amra Bavo, what is Rabbi Yochanan saying? Amal lim is zainais. If you say Lashon lim is zainais, Reba lam is zainais. Amar bim is zainais, in mizainis, then cuts is lam is zainais. Again, it's a question of semantics. If you said it should be for mizainis, that means in addition to. In mizainis would be solely for it, right? So look at Rashi. Mizainis, b'chayiv mizainis yesh lech alai, mashma shezute piroyin lekach. The chiyuv mizainis that you have on me, bim mizainis, the chiyuv mizainis should be collected from this land. Right? Again, you said lim mizainis, you get both. On that note, Hajjal Naira, Hajjal Naira, Hajjal Naira. Okay, next parak. Continuing along, basically the same thing, same theme of, again, after all, guys, this Masechta is called Kesuvos. I mean, it brings in the kitchen sink, but it's called Kesuvos. Okay, now, Alpha Pisha Amru, guys, if this sounds familiar, we had this already. We had it before, right? Machloikis Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda regarding a Kesuba. Alpha Pisha Amru Besula Goiva Masayim, the Almana Mana, even said a Besula collects 200, and Almana collects 100. Imratza lahaisif, if he wants to add onto the Kesuba, Lush is important. Imratza lahaisif, if he wants to be Maisif, Afilu Meya Mana Yosef, even 100 money can add on. You know, so you're not limited to 200, you're not limited to 100, you can add on. This is what we call the Taisvis Kesuba, Taisefis Kesuba. This Almon is Garsha, Bein Mina, here's the Machlek that we had earlier, Bein Mina Erisin, whether they never consummated the marriage, never was a chuppah, Bein Mina Nesuin, Goiva es hakol, then you collect the whole thing. According to the Tanakama, you would even collect the Taisefes. You'd even, not only the 200, you collect the Taisefes. If they got to the chuppah, if there's Nesuin, then you collect everything. Avalmina Erisin, if she's an Almana or a Gerusha from Erisin, then Basula is limited Goiva Masayim, the Almana Mana, only the Ikka Ksuba, but not the Taisefes Ksuba. You know why? The reason why he was benevolent and generous by giving this extra Taisefes is al smach that he would live with her. But now he never lived with her. It was only on Rusa, you only get the ikka ksuba, you will not get what? That's the machloikas with the Tanakama and the Blaz ben Azariah that we had previously. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, another din. In Ratza, Koisav Besula, Shtar Shamasayim. If he wants, he could write a star of 200. We had this as well. He Koiseves, and she can say, Hiskabalti mimach, mana. I received from you a money. Even you didn't. She writes a receipt. I received from you a manash. In other words, she can, for all intents and purposes, be Michael 100 sus. In other words, you can't go ahead and write for an almana for a basula 200. That you can't 100. You can't do that because they were metakin for a basula 200. You can't write for an almana 50 because they were metakin 100. What you can do, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is write a receipt that you receive that. So therefore, you don't even mechayiv yourself 100. The Kesuvos would say 200 or 100, and you mechayiv yourself 100 or 50. Mana, the hikoy sevis is kabalti imcha chamishim zuz, and she could say, "I received chamishim zuz."
Did you really get it?
No, even she didn't get it. Anyone who goes ahead and gives less than 200 or 100, this is where we had earlier. The mayor does not allow for this protocol of going ahead and trying to beat the system.
So why? I don't know what hope you can do it. You're not allowed to.
Why? Who says you can't do it? Rabbi says you can't. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Machlokes. If you look again, Rabbi is of the opinion that anyone can live with a wife without a ksuba, right? So also, the people in the house who have this ksuba on the wall, it's not such a good thing. You're not supposed to know what a ksuba is. Ksuba is a document of money. But just to show you, Avrami, if you look at Rashi, the Hikay Seva, she writes a receipt. Afa pi shalenis kabla, even if she doesn't receive anything. Meicheles, she's meichelit. Uksuba b'loshin shoiver, and she writes in loshin of shoiver of a receipt that she received, even though she's meichel. Says the Gemara, Pshita. Of course, you can write. What's the chiddush, guys, of Tosefes Ksuba? In other words, what's the chiddush? Even though what they said 200, 100, if the guy wants to add on, he wants to add on. But you need the Mishnah to tell you that if you want to add on, you can add on. Of course, you can add on. Doesn't know what I'll tell you now. Mount Tema Kitsusa of the Rabbanan. I might say the Rabbanan set amount of 200. You know why? Not to embarrass somebody who doesn't have. Kamash Malon. The Chiddush, you're able to write guys, listen to this. You're writing a ksuba that says 200, in addition 100, and you're writing it in the ksuba itself. That's part of ksuba. You could do something very easily. You could keep the ksuba as 200, give her a shtar matana for 100. In other words, there are ways to go ahead and to make the deal go through without necessarily putting in the ksuba. If you want to give her extra money, the chiddush is that you could put it in the ksuba, despite the fact that not everyone's going to do it. You might think that, you know what, better than the Joneses here. You're doing it, and so you might think the Chacham would take this into account. Kamashma, no, Kamashma, that anyone can do it. If you don't do it, you don't do it. But we're not going to go ahead and give you another document. We're going to make it part of the ksuba proper, and we'll stop over here. Have a good night, everybody.